tuning in to another episode of the Berardo Podcast. I'm your host, Tony Berardo. Each episode I focus on giving you fun, entertaining content on health, happiness, positivity, and anything else that's important to us humans. If you haven't already, you can follow me on Instagram at the Berardo, and don't forget to subscribe to the show by visiting theberardo.com/thepodcast, or just click that little subscribe button wherever you're listening to the podcast. Thanks again, and enjoy the episode.
You're just funny. It's funny, the way you tell the story and everything.
Funny how?
Come here though. Yeah, he's crazy, see? Who are you?
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Are you ready?
Alrighty. Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on, guys and gals? Hey, thanks for tuning in to the show. I, of course, am your host, Tony Berardo. And, each week I try to give you some really cool and fun podcasts to listen to. Today is going to be no different than that. It's going to be talking about positivity and just a couple tips that I've learned, especially during COVID, that we all really just kind of need to take a big dose of this positivity pill. About 10 or 11 things that I'm gonna tell you today that has really helped me, and hopefully it'll help you and or a family member. But before we get into today's episode, I do want to thank our sponsors. Our friends over at Superfat, guys. You don't hear me talk about them enough. Superfat is just such a great company. They have tons of products, a lot of new things, actually. If you haven't tried them lately, they just came out with 2 brand new baking mixes. So they have keto brownie mix. That's awesome. As well as keto pancake mix. So naturally, as you can imagine, these are keto friendly, but a lot of their products are actually vegan friendly as well. So I'm a huge fan of their nut butters, which they have tons of great flavors to choose from, as well as their keto cookie bites. Now, the cool thing about Superfat is they use no palm oil, no added sugar. It's all healthy ingredients. And again, keto and vegan friendly. So you just can't beat it. Go to superfat.com, try out anything you want. Use the code Berardo10. You're going to get a discount at checkout. Again, superfat.com. Thank you, Superfat. Keep it on, because they are my guilt-free pleasure, and they're completely delicious, 100%. And I also want to thank our friends at Public Goods. So Public Goods, guys, is your one-stop shop for healthy, sustainable, and beautiful-looking products. Everything from canned foods, granola, hot sauce, salsa, condiments, just your daily pantry staples and refrigerator things that you already get anyway. Public Goods is going to have it, but what's great about Public Goods is it has a very minimalist, clean look that, more importantly, is sustainable to the environment. So, like, for example, if you pick up their glass cleaner or cleaning supplies, really any of their cleaning supplies or soaps, they're going to give you 1 tube or 1 spray bottle. And then if you ever want to order it again, they give you the option to order just the refills. So there are these, eco-friendly refills that you just squirt into the big container. So you're not constantly buying these large plastic containers. And they do that with a lot of their products. Just overall, really great company. They have your normal staples that you always pick up. Canned goods. Again, condiments, salsa, pasta, rice, trail mix. You name it, Public Goods has it. All of it is very, user-friendly. The website, just go to publicgoods.com. It's super easy to navigate. You can use the code TonyPGA for a risk-free opportunity to try publicgoods.com. And again, these are things you're going to use anyway. Visit publicgoods.com. TonyPGA. You will not regret it. Thank you, Public Goods. Last but not least, I do want to thank my buddies over at Rainforest Bowls. So Rainforest Bowls, guys, you see me if you follow me on Instagram at the Berardo, where I post constantly using my Rainforest Bowls, my utensils, because I love them. Not only do they look really, really cool, but it's going to a good cause. Every single coconut tree that's in the rainforest right now, when that gets chopped down, typically all the coconut shells and the wood cutoffs and all that stuff, it usually gets burned. So what Rainforest Bowls have been able to do is they're actually controlling how all those wood cutoffs and coconut shells are being used. Every purchase that you pick up from Rainforest Bowls is going to a good cause, because 150 bowls equals 15 trees planted. Year to date, they've actually been able to plant over 10,000 coconut trees in the rainforest. So it's a super great cause, guys. I definitely recommend you check them out if you're interested in, using utensils I mean, we're not animals, right? I mean, use bowls, utensils, straws. They have everything. They even have wine glasses and cups. It's incredible. Rainforestbowls.com. Use the code TheBarardo, but only use that code if you want 20% off. If you want to pay full price, don't use it. Yeah, I know, exactly. TheBarardo, 20% off at rainforestbowls.com. Rainforest Bowls, thank you for an awesome discount as well as helping the environment. Kudos. You have planted much more trees than me, and probably a lot of people listening to this podcast, so we appreciate you. With all that said, folks, I can't thank you enough for lasting another year with me. This is exciting. We're almost at episode 100. Boy, oh boy, it has been quite a journey to get here. And, with COVID and, it's the pandemic that we've been dealing with, in case you didn't know, there's been some challenges for sure. And the fact that, this was an election year and there's been a lot of negativity, especially, if you listen to like social media, or excuse me, if you're on social media and you're actually just scrolling your feed, it's a lot of negative bullshit and, people hopping in your comment section, talking shit. So a lot of that's going on too. So I kind of want to do a little podcast of something that helped me, and I call it the Positivity Starter Pack. I post it on Instagram. I'll leave the link of everything in the description, but it's just kind of a 9 or 10 things that have really helped me during COVID. And, I like to think my friends and family that I communicate with have kind of picked up a few of these practices. I know my wife in particular probably won't even see this clip because she's decided to go with no social media. She's deleted her apps on her phone, not her account, but if you try tagging her, try looking her up, it's now set to private, so she's not getting a lot of spam and stuff. I don't think it was one thing in particular. I'd love to have her on the podcast to see how she's been during it, because she seems, relatively happy with it. I don't think she's really cared, to be honest with you. So it's pretty interesting. So maybe I can get her on the podcast in a couple of weeks or something to talk about it. But she's definitely been doing that, and that's helped her stay positive. But if you don't have the self-control for that, there are other things you can do. And that's kind of what we're going to go over today a little bit. And again, this should be a pretty brief podcast. I just kind of want to lay out a couple steps that might help you or a family member. And I think the first thing to that point about the wife is just not using a phone as much. And that's kind of the problem, right? It's like, telling an alcoholic not to drink beer. It's a tough thing, right? Because it's either you cut it cold turkey, or if you have it available, you're probably going to use it, right? So you have to set up some type of schedule. And the first thing I talked about on my blog, which is available at thebarardo.com, is this starter pack. The first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is I try not to grab my phone first. That's the big thing. So really try not to grab your phone first, but also don't grab it right before you go to bed. Pick a time. I pick 8 p.m. That's my time. So 8 p.m., I put my phone on my nightstand because, I set an alarm, obviously. But I put it in my nightstand and, I'll go back in the living room and watch TV, or we'll, cook dinner, or whatever your schedule is. But pick a time to just put your phone away and tell yourself you're not going to touch it until the next day. Now, when the next day comes, sometimes we always get in the habit of what? We wake up, we give ourselves a yawn, a little stretch, and then we grab our phone right away. It's crazy. And I think that's a huge problem, and we got to really admit that to ourselves and say, if we grab our phone right away, like what happens if we had some great dreams and a good night's sleep, and, you have so much planned today that's exciting, and, you can't wait to get to work, or, you're just feeling good, right? You're feeling positive. And that's at like 7 o'clock when you get up, let's say. And then at 7:15, you're on your phone and you're spending the next 20, 30 minutes before you have coffee, or before you have breakfast, before you start your day. You're still in bed, you're looking at your phone, and then you're scrolling these feeds and you're seeing all the bullshit that's going on. You're seeing friends go back and forth, and you're getting involved in those negative conversations. You see all the negative stuff that's going on overseas, and politics, and religion, and this and that, and just there's all this shit, man, that we get consumed with on a daily basis. If that's the first thing you start your day with, your day just went from awesome, getting ready to be fantastic, getting ready to take over the day, to now it's completely negative, and it's things that aren't even in your control. So I try to maintain that by not even touching my phone until I have my cup of coffee And, sometimes I go upstairs and I'll do a little stretching or some yoga, or I might even hit the gym first. And the only thing I pull up on my phone if I have to use it is music or a podcast, is because that's at least something educational, right? I don't want to be scrolling feeds right away, right in the morning. It's just not good practice, in my opinion. And that kind of leads me to the next thing is, what do I do next? If I'm starting my day, what do I have to do? Well, I always like every single day, I have a notebook, and each sheet is the day. Oh, each sheet is one day. I don't really have a calendar one because I don't like those. They're too small. I just have one notebook, right? So that one notebook is Monday. That one page is Monday. And then I write out what I have to do, but I do something kind of funky. Tell me if you're into it. Is I'll do like a list of, my to-do list, like, make I don't know, let's say the first thing is call the doctor's office, and I'll write that down. And the next thing will be, make a schedule for Friday. Next thing will be, call Jeff. Next thing will be call this, call. And I write the list, but I do little boxes next to it. So I don't just do a list, right? You dig? I do a list and then I do the boxes. The reason I do that is because I love the check. I'm a big check guy. Like, to see a check next to something is like, oof, completed, done. And sometimes even highlight and color coordinate, and I do things like that. And that's on my to-do list, but I do that every single morning. First things first. No excuses. And I write out what I have to do today. Then the next thing I do is, once I wrote that out, then I go to yesterday, and whatever I didn't accomplish yesterday, things that aren't checked off or things that I have to do, I move that to today. So the list, you're always going to have something to do. And if you end up completing things every single day, that's epic. Good for you. But there's something about that check. There's something about writing it out on paper, with the pencil or a pen. Literally just putting that to paper, I think, is very beneficial. And it's beneficial for a lot of ways. I think cognitively, we just like to accomplish things a little bit more when we write it out. Because if you think about it, I mean, when we were in trouble as kids, what'd they make you do? If, like, you chewed gum in class, I will not chew gum. I will not chew gum. I will not. And they did that because they wanted you to not do it, right? So they knew if you kept writing it out over and over, you're going to be sick of it, and hopefully you weren't going to chew gum. Now, that might be a bad example because you guys probably listen and be like, I fucking chew gum the next day. I get it. But you get the point, right? It's like, once you write it out and you constantly get in this habit and this routine, it's going to help you out big time. So that was huge for me. And I still do that every single day. I have a personal to-do list and a work to-do list. So that's just something to think about. Next thing is read more. One thing that I've really struggled with, because I used to be big into like wanting to read, not necessarily the actual act of reading, but 2021 is like my main goal is to really read. But I think I'm going to be more realistic about it, where, if you don't want to read, that's fine, but you could pick up a hobby, right? Instead of reading, you could pick up a hobby, like maybe you want to, draw more or scrapbook. I recommend something creative, something that's not working out. Even though that's a hobby, you should be working out anyway. This is incremental to that. So this is something additionally that you can do to, be active, get your brain going, right? Because working out physically gets you going, right? And get you healthy, but mentally, what are you doing? So I definitely want to read more, but I think I'm going to do more audiobooks, because I try to do like regular books and I just can't fucking do it. I've tried I never get through a book. I just have the worst ADD, but I love podcasts, so I think audiobooks is something I'm going to start to do a lot more of. You guys tell me what you think. I don't know if you guys are into audiobooks, but I'd love to get into that, and I think I'm going to start doing that a lot more. But reading more is crucial. The wife, for her like side hobby, she does crosswords. And no, she's not 65, but she's been getting into crosswords lately, and it's great because it activates your brain, right? It works out your brain mentally. What are you doing on a daily basis to kind of, work on your mental health? And don't say work, and don't say yeah. Because remember, you're working on something that is stressing you out, really. I mean, work is work, right? Work is not a hobby. You're not doing that to enjoy yourself, to get you smarter. Does that make sense? So you want to make sure you're doing something mentally that's going to help you out. Again, I like to choose reading, but it's up to you. The next thing, we're on number four right now. The next thing is just spending time with positive people. I think the wife has a good point here by cutting out her social media because she's not spending time with any negative people. Yeah, of course, she's not spending time with her friends that, maybe she goes back and forth on Snapchat or IG or something, but you could just text. I mean, especially if you have an iPhone, the iPhone's like, I would say even better than like Instagram stories. You could still do filters, you could do GIFs. I mean, you could do all that stuff that's just as fun. So if they're really your friends, they'll text you. If they're not, then, fuck them. Right? I mean, you could easily pick up the phone and call. You don't have to do everything through social media. So I think avoiding social media really helps you stay positive. And that's the one thing she told me. She's going on like a week and a half now of not using social media. So, spend your time with just positive things and positive people. And one thing in particular for me, and I talked about this on our last podcast with Bobby Hicks, the algorithms, the way they work on social media is not what you think. Everyone is hating on social media, and, especially because of the politics that's been going on the last, forever, but particularly in the last like 2-3 years since Trump has been in office. There's so much, negative on social media because social media is at like peak right now. It's really rocking, right? Like everyone's on social media. Everyone's got a phone. You're on our phone 12 hours a day. I mean, you're literally using it for work, business, pleasure, everything. And there's a lot of negative shit out there. But if you're seeing more negative shit than me, let's say, which you might be, is because you're consuming negative shit. Meaning, if you just watch nothing but puppy videos and you respond to people with nothing but puppy emojis and you're doing everything puppy related on social media, you're only going to get puppy shit. You're only going to get puppy videos and puppy ads and probably dog food. You're going to get a bunch of puppy stuff because that's the way the algorithm works. It's all based off what you like, not what you hate. Understand that. It's based off what you like, not what you hate. So if you continuously like things and follow people and hop into conversations that are negative, your newsfeed on Facebook, Instagram, all that is going to be negative. It's going to be negative stories and negative stuff that you probably subconsciously might want to see, but don't blame social media when your feed's all negative. That's all 100% your fault. Is social media, does it have its gaps? Of course, 100%. I think every company does, right? They're just a bunch of people working for a company. So you can easily avoid that by deleting it or just spend time with positive people. And same thing with friends too. I typically, I talk to a few friends here and there, but I only talk to the ones that don't feed me all their bullshit. So we all got our problems. We do. And listen, I get it. Some people have more problems than others. And if you're my friend and you're listening out there, you know this better than most. I'm here for you. Anything you need, I got your back. Even if I haven't talked to you for a year. Like if you're a true friend, I'll take a bullet. Like I'm there for you. But if you're just going to call me every single day and bitch and complain about your work and your spouse and your life, I ain't got time for that. I'm not your therapist. Why? Because I have my own problems, right? So again, if I have my problems and I'm venting to you as my friend, you have your problems and you're venting to me as a friend, guess what? Now all we're doing every time we talk is just talk negative shit. So who do you talk to the negative shit with? I don't know, man. You got to figure that out on your own. But personally, I don't think you should be venting to friends. Maybe family, maybe, but I don't even do that. I let my mother and my father doesn't really vent to me at all because he's a big boy. He can handle himself. But, my mother occasionally, she's out in Phoenix. She's by herself. I love hearing her negative stuff because I like to pick it apart and help her solve problems because she's on her own. But other than that, like friends that are like in their 30s that are complaining that a bar is not open because of COVID, like, bro, I don't need that shit. Get out of here with that. Let's talk about positive stuff. Let's talk about what you're doing with your life. Let's talk about, your lovely spouse and your new house. And let's talk about the good shit, man. That's what it's about. Friends come and go, but don't waste time talking about negative shit. There's way more important things in life than that bullshit. And if you're having trouble, with talking positive and not being negative and not being surrounded by negative, I recommend finding a positive podcast. Of course, I'm biased. I think you should listen to this one, but amongst others, I think there's a lot of great podcasts out there that are objective, that are positive, that don't necessarily stress you out. It's educational. You just got to find a couple good ones. Tim Ferriss has some great podcasts. Of course, Joe Rogan's the man, the myth, the legend. I love listening to his podcast just because he's got some great information. But there's some really great podcasts out there that you can learn a ton of great stuff about things you like. If you're into fitness, I mean, shit, Bobby, who was on the podcast last week, he's into kettlebells, and they actually have kettlebell podcasts. So it's just like kettlebell athletes talking shit about working out and stuff. So if you're into working out, there's a podcast for that. There's so much audio out there and so much content that you could do so many things and you could learn so much. I just think you need to broaden your mind a little bit. You need to get out there and you need to consume more positive stuff, because that's how you're going to ooze positivity, is by taking it in. It's kind of gross, but you get what I'm saying. Everything we've been talking about is really just mental health, right? There's also a big factor I personally think about being positive, and that's releasing stress. And there's one way to do that, and y'all know what that is. We're not going to talk about that, though. We're going to talk about working out. Working out's a great way to relieve stress. You hear me talk about it all the time. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I personally think you should be active for at least 3 times a week. And that's something, right? 20, 30, 40 minutes a day, whether that's a bike ride, a walk, a run. Yoga obviously is great stress relief, but releasing those endorphins, working out, just getting rid of that, the breathing and the, everything that you're just pushing out into the universe. Every time I work out, I always kind of think to myself, if I want to give up, I always think that part in Proposal, when Betty White takes Sandra Bullock out into the woods and she does that Indian dance and she screams out into the forest. There's a lot of power in that, man. The human beings have been doing that for thousands and thousands of years. I mean, it's a big deal, to get out and release that aggression. And sometimes we forget that because we're cooped up in our walls and we're staring at our phones. We forget to kind of release that aggression. So I think being active is very important. And you just got to figure out what you can do and stick to it on a schedule. If you've never done kettlebells before, I recommend not starting with kettlebells tomorrow, but maybe doing some stretching every day. You can do 20 minutes of stretching. You can do 10 minutes of the bike right afterwards and just kind of get your body going. And then in a couple months, you can move up to maybe kettlebells and heavy weights and things like that. But you have to find something that's going to keep you active, right? And then, of course, you don't want it to be all work, right? It sounds like I'm talking a lot about, reading and mental health and working out and positivity and, oh man, there's not enough hours in the day, Tony. I get it. And, that kind of leads me to the next point, which is you got to find a work-life balance. I think that's huge. With the pandemic in particular, I've always worked from home for the past 5-6 years, but Brenda, my wife, has really starting to understand this, and she's becoming really good at it, to where having a work-life balance is going to keep you sane. If you're working from home like a lot of us are now because of the pandemic, it's going to be very challenging to get out of the house and actually do something. But it is super crucial, whether you work from home or not, that you're doing something outside. If you're active and you're going to the gym, that's fantastic, but I personally think you should be doing something outdoors. Again, even if that's a 10-minute walk or a bike ride, or you want to skateboard or rollerblade, or, do something. Just get in a routine where you're stepping outside, because I just see it, especially with this new community that we're in. We're doing it a lot more and we're getting outside more. But man, I thought to myself the last few years that I was so like in a box. I'd go to my events for work and then I would come back home and I'd be, working on my laptop, and we'd be watching TV and Netflix. And you don't think to yourself how much you're indoors, and being outside is so important, especially for your immune system. You look at all the studies with the pandemic, and there's one really key nutrient that we're getting to avoid COVID, and that's vitamin D and vitamin C. Vitamin C, obviously, you can get a lot of different ways. Vitamin D you can do as well, but guess where a big part of vitamin D can come from? being outside, the sun. It's extremely important, right? So I think there's something to be said in that. And I think we got to get back to just being outside and being active more, especially the younger kids. We used to be active, when I was a kid, but you look around now and kids aren't active, right? They're getting pulled out of school and they're getting homeschooled and they're stuck at home staring at a laptop, but where are they getting active? What are they doing to be active, right? So I think we really got to focus back on being outside, getting to our roots, being humans. Humans, we started from outside. We gotta spend a little bit more time out there. When you are inside and you're eating, I keep talking about it, but I mean, eating's a big part of being healthy. You don't have to be like me. You don't have to be vegan or vegetarian or pescatarian, but you got to do what's right for you. And, me and my buddy Jason, we're actually working on a documentary called Eating Both Sides, where we talk about all the different types of diets. And I'm really looking forward to that. It's coming out in 2022, eatingbothsides.com. If you're feeling squirrely and want to check it out. Eating healthy doesn't have to be a diet per se. It just has to be what's right for you. That's the important conversation about this, right? And again, we go back to the immune system. Eating healthy is a big factor of COVID, and a lot of people that can't survive COVID when they end up getting, the virus, is you're overweight, diabetes, high blood pressure. All that's caused by your eating habits. So you really have to decide what is right for you and talk to a doctor or a nutritionist. You got to worry about that. I mean, that's a big deal. They always say you are what you eat. That's 100% accurate. You are what you eat. So if you eat, processed, shitty foods, believe me, you're going to feel shitty. You're going to feel processed. Just from my disease and what I've realized is I'll have an egg every now and then. I'm not full vegan. But the one thing that really helps me is non-processed foods, whole foods. Not going to Whole Foods, the store, but actually whole foods, fruits, vegetables, things that aren't in a box. Things you get, produce, no frozen stuff, no processed stuff, nothing. You want to stay on the outer aisles, right? You go to the store, typically the outer aisles are all the healthy stuff, and the inner aisles are, where all the sugar and the bullshit is and the carbs are. Listen to a nutritionist, go to a doctor, do what you got to do. But guys, you got to figure out something. Eating right is so important, especially now more than ever because we're stuck at home and we're not getting all the nutrients by going outside and our immune systems are being jeopardized. So you want to make sure you're eating the right things. The last thing is rest. Rest is probably the only thing on the list that we've talked about that I struggle with every day. I don't know what the fuck I need to do to get some rest, but it's very frustrating. And today in particular, which is kind of why I want to do this podcast, because I really thought about this. I've tried melatonin. I've tried CBD oil. I've tried everything, man. I just cannot sleep a full 8 hours. I cannot get that REM sleep that I need. I don't know. I might go to a specialist. I even cut out the caffeine. I mean, I barely do energy drinks, shockingly, though I work for the company. I mean, I do a cup of coffee in the morning, but it's super early too. I do it typically in the morning. I don't know what it is. I just think my wife always says my brain's going a million miles a minute, and that could be accurate. I got to figure it out, but rest is very important. It literally rests your brain, right? It puts your brain into a reboot stage, almost like a computer. If you actually have a laptop or a computer, they always tell you to shut down your computer each night, not to keep it running every day because it's going to shorten lifespan. Think of your brain the same way. Your brain has to rest and it has to calm down. And there's a lot of supplements you can take, but of course the best supplement to take is just sleeping. Sleeping is the best way, to reboot your brain. And of course you don't want to use, any type of, sleep aids or anything like that. You want it to be fresh and maybe do some tea. Tea does help me sometimes. If I'm really hyped up, I'll have some sleepy time tea or something like that. And that really helps kind of calm me down. And I'll spray a couple shots of melatonin on it. And again, that does help, but man, I just can't. I think I'm just so excited to start the day and I just have so much I want to do that I just can't sleep. For some reason, my brain just doesn't want to sleep. I don't know. I'm working on it. But anyway, I've been creating content for the past only a year and a half or so, I think. And I'm almost at 100 episodes. I just kind of wanted to put this out in particular because as I creep up to 100, I think this will be a couple shy of 100. I hope to bring you guys educational, fun, entertaining content that you'll share with friends, with family. The reason I have sponsors and the reason why I've grown this podcast just in the past 18 months is because of you guys. So I can't thank you enough. I hope that you'll share the podcast if you enjoy it, if you get value out of it. I'd love to get a review from you. You know, if you go to Apple, Spotify, Google, whatever, Facebook, leave a review. It'll mean the world to me. Give me a few stars. Let me know what you think. It could be anonymous too. I just kind of want to know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, so I can make this better, because I want this to be one of the top podcasts that you listen to. You know, I have about 5 or 6 top podcasts, and I want this to be your top podcast that you listen to. So whatever I could do to bring you value, that is my goal, and I hope I have done so thus far, and I promise that I will continue to work hard to make sure I do. So thank you so much again for tuning in to the Barado Podcast. I am your host, Tony Barado. Until next week, we will see you later. Stay positive and stay safe, friends. Peace.